There are fruits and vegetables so enormous they seem to come from another world. Watermelons are larger than a person, onions are impossible to carry in both hands, and pumpkins weigh more than a motorcycle. Today, you'll learn about 15 of the most impressive records ever recorded. Get ready, because the last one on this list is so enormous that it defies everything you thought possible. First up, the giant pumpkin. When nature decides to break its own rules, it does so in a big way. Proof of this is the giant pumpkin, which shocked the world in 2016. Grown by Matthias Vellemans in Belgium, it reached an incredible weight of 1,247 kilograms. This isn't just a Halloween vegetable, but a true vegetable monster, so huge that many call it a land submarine. Imagine a fruit that weighs as much as a small car and whose volume could fill an entire living room. Moving it required specialized equipment, cranes, and platforms, as lifting it by human power was utterly impossible. But the most impressive thing about it isn't just its size, but the secret behind this record. These giant pumpkins aren't found in supermarkets, and they don't appear magically. They're the result of decades of seed selection, refined growing techniques, and exceptional care. Farmers competing in this category spend months monitoring every detail, from soil quality to millimeter by millimeter watering, not to mention protecting against pests that can ruin everything in a matter of days. In this case, the Belgian climate, with its constant rainfall and moderate temperatures, proved the perfect ally. Combined with Vellemans' knowledge and patience, the pumpkin grew into a giant, setting a world record that remains difficult to beat. Interestingly, despite their monumental size, these pumpkins aren't meant to be eaten. Their flesh is fibrous and not very tasty, but that doesn't matter. What truly matters is the spectacle, the wonder of how nature can multiply the ordinary and push it to seemingly impossible limits. The second watermelon is gigantic. If a giant pumpkin seemed impossible, wait until you learn about the largest watermelon ever recorded. In 2013, in Tennessee, USA, a farmer named Chris Kent became a legend by growing a watermelon that reached 159 kilograms, 350 pounds. Think about it, we're talking about a fruit that weighed as much as a grown human. The first thing that strikes you is the colossal size of that watermelon. Imagine trying to place it on the kitchen counter. It would take up the entire space, and moving it was a real challenge. 2 people weren't enough to lift it. Boards, supports, and careful planning were needed to keep it from cracking under its own weight. After all, a watermelon's rind, no matter how thick, isn't designed to withstand such internal pressure. The secret to this green giant isn't much different from other record-breaking vegetables. A seed with the right genetic potential, nutrient-rich soil, and constant monitoring of growth. Chris Kent spent hours checking soil moisture, temperature, and the precise amount of water. Watering, not too much, not too little, was key to ensuring the watermelon grew without cracking. Curiously, despite its enormous size, this watermelon was edible, and its flavor was as sweet and juicy as any other. But the truth is, no one dared cut into it without first displaying it for what it was, a true agricultural gem worthy of a Guinness World Record. Third, giant cabbage. In the summer of 2012, in remote and frigid Alaska, an agricultural phenomenon occurred that seemed to have emerged from a slumber. A head of cabbage that reached a weight of 62 kilograms. We're not talking about a simple salad addition, but a veritable clump of plants whose leaves were so large they could cover a person from head to toe. The secret of this stalk wasn't a magic seed, but a very special natural ally, the midnight sun. In Alaskan summer, the days seem to never end. The sun stays in the sky for up to 20 hours, bathing the plants in constant energy that accelerates their growth. This continuous light acts as a kind of solar fertilizer. And the cabbage used every minute to unfurl its gigantic leaves. Imagine walking through a garden with this giant cabbage. Its crisp leaves rise like green walls, creating the feeling of being in a plant forest. Each head could be over a meter wide, and together they formed a kind of natural canopy. The farmer who achieved this feat required not only patience but also an almost obsessive control of the environment. Protecting such a large cabbage from insects, fungi, or sudden temperature changes was a formidable challenge. Any carelessness could have resulted in the loss of months of work. Most curiously, unlike a giant pumpkin, this cabbage was edible, albeit in unimaginable quantities. Just one such vegetable would have been enough to feed an entire village during a communal meal. This 2-kilogram cabbage not only became a world record but also a symbol of how nature, combined with extreme conditions and human dedication, can surpass all expectations and transform an ordinary vegetable into a truly admirable giant. Fourth, the giant carrot in 2000. In 2014, a British gardener named Joe Atherton achieved the seemingly impossible. He grew a carrot that reached 10 kilograms and 17 grams in weight. A figure that transforms this humble root into a true earth monster. But the most astonishing thing wasn't just its weight, but its shape. Instead of a straight, graceful carrot, something resembling an orange octopus emerged from the ground, with numerous branches radiating in all directions. This unusual appearance has a scientific explanation. When carrots grow in very compact soil or with rocks inside, the root seeks different paths to develop. This results in branches and uneven shapes, which in this case gave the carrot a completely surreal appearance. To achieve this size, Atherton spent months preparing the soil. He used a type of fine, loose sand that allowed the root to expand unimpeded, and employed a vertical cultivation technique with deep tubes to guide the growth. He also precisely controlled the moisture and nutrients, avoiding any excess that could break the root. The result was so impressive that it quickly became international news. A carrot capable of filling a table by itself, weighing the equivalent of more than 70 ordinary carrots. Curiously, although this carrot was edible, no one thought of cooking it. The value of this specimen, Value thought, lay not in the soup it could be made into, but in the record it represented, living proof that even the most ordinary vegetables can be transformed into astonishing giants when science, dedication, and nature unite in perfect harmony. Fifth, a giant potato. In Great Britain, a land of culinary traditions where potatoes occupy a privileged place on the table, a tuber was harvested that astonished everyone. The potato reached 4 kilograms 98 grams. Such an extraordinary size that one tuber would be enough to feed an entire family. Imagine opening a supermarket bag and finding inside a single potato the size of a small watermelon. No more peeling and cooking. This single specimen would be enough to fill a stew or serve with a whole roast. The key to this underground giant lies in its genetics and the conditions of British soil, renowned for its constant moisture and mineral richness. Farmers who specialize in setting records know that this balance is delicate. Too much water can cause the tuber to rot, while too little can stop its development. Therefore, controlled watering and the selection of deep, loose soil are crucial to allowing the potato to grow to seemingly unrealistic sizes. Interesting fact: despite their size, the texture and flavor of these giant potatoes usually remain unchanged. Theoretically, they could be sliced and used to make the largest batch of French fries in history. However, as with many such record-breaking vegetables, their destiny is rarely in the kitchen. They are displayed like living trophies, proud examples of what nature can achieve with a little help from humans. Sixth, a giant radish, the Japanese daikon. In Japan, a country where precision and dedication are part of everyday life, a radish was grown that looked more like a tree trunk than a root. It was in 2003 that a Japanese daikon was registered weighing 31 kilograms and 100 grams, a figure that made it a true giant of white earth. Daikon is a very popular radish in Japanese cuisine. Typically elongated, with white skin and a mild flavor, it's ideal for soups, marinades, and stews. Typically weighing between 1 and 2 kilograms, this specimen defied all logic. Imagine a radish as thick as the trunk of a young tree, and so long that it would be impossible to fit into a regular refrigerator. The secret to this monumental growth lies in the fertile, deep soil combined with a favorable climate. Japanese farmers, renowned for their discipline, employed meticulous techniques, from preparing the soil with special treatments to allow the roots to grow unhindered to controlling moisture with millimeter precision. Every day mattered, as excess water or pest infestation could ruin months of work. Curiously, unlike other giant vegetables that lose their flavor, this daikon was edible and retained its characteristic freshness. However, its size made it a culinary challenge. How to cut and store such a root? It was both a meal and a spectacle. The giant Japanese daikon not only broke records but also cemented Japan's image as a country where tradition and excellence combine, even in agriculture. Thus, the humble white root became a symbol of what patience, technique, and a love of nature can produce. 7th. Giant broccoli. In 2014, in the UK, the eyes of the agricultural world turned to a vegetable that looked like a small, miniature forest. This was a broccoli that reached 15 kilograms and 900 grams. A record that made it the undisputed queen of cruciferous vegetables. To imagine its size, a simple comparison will suffice. Regular broccoli weighs between 300 and 500 grams. This one, on the other hand, was equivalent to more than 30 ordinary heads of broccoli gathered on a single stem. Its green branches spread like tiny trees, forming a vegetative canopy so voluminous that it could fill an entire shopping basket alone. The secret to such growth is a combination of selected genetics and nutrient-rich soil. The farmer responsible spent months nourishing the plants with natural compost and controlling humidity with utmost precision. The temperate British climate, with regular rainfall and moderate temperatures, did the rest. Interesting detail. Broccoli, despite its reputation as the enemy of many children, is one of the most nutritious foods in existence. It is packed with vitamins, antioxidants, and fiber. And in this case, the giant version would have been enough to prepare dozens of dishes, from creamy soups to stews, enough to feed an entire school for lunch. The record-breaking broccoli was exhibited at agricultural fairs, where crowds gazed in amazement. It wasn't just food, it was a work of nature's art. A living demonstration of how a plant, usually small and unassuming, can be transformed into a spectacle that arouses admiration and curiosity in equal measure. This colossal broccoli has gone down in history as a symbol of the tenacity of British gardeners and as a perfect example of how, in nature, even the most ordinary can attain extraordinary proportions. 8th. The giant tomato in 2000. In 2019, the United States became the site of a record that turned a humble vegetable into a global star. A tomato that reached 4 kilograms and 890 grams. At first glance, it was hard to believe it was a tomato, as its size was more like a melon than a salad fruit. This colossal specimen completely shattered our image of the tomato. Typically, a fruit of this type weighs around 150 grams. This means this giant was equivalent to more than 30 ordinary tomatoes condensed into a single fruit. A true red miracle that defied all known proportions. The secret to its growth lay in technique and patience. The responsible farmer used a special seed variety known for producing large fruits and followed the process with strict soil and water control. Being highly sensitive to changes in humidity, the tomato required perfect balance to prevent it from cracking under its own weight. For months, the plant was tended daily as if it were a treasure. Most astonishingly, despite its extraordinary size, this giant tomato retained its juicy flesh and its characteristic sweet and sour flavor. Theoretically, it could have produced enough sauce for dozens of family pizzas or filled a pot of gazpacho to feed an entire neighborhood. Displayed at fairs and photographed by hundreds of curious onlookers, this tomato went down in history as one of the great triumphs of modern horticulture. More than just a fruit, it was proof that the mundane, taken to its extreme, can transform into a spectacle that astonishes the world. 9th. The giant cucumber. In the UK in 2011, a humble cucumber made global news, reaching 12 kilograms and 900 grams. It was so long and sinuous that many compared it to a green plant snake. A vegetable that, instead of fitting in the palm of a hand, required an outstretched arm to hold. A cucumber typically weighs between 200 and 300 grams. This specimen was equivalent to more than 100 ordinary cucumbers, all packed into a single fruit. Its size was not only impressive at first glance but also posed a logistical challenge. How to transport it, where to store it, and, most importantly, how to present it to the public without it buckling under its own weight. The British farmer who achieved this feat did so through a combination of carefully selected seeds, a controlled greenhouse, and meticulous temperature and humidity monitoring. Cucumbers are predominantly aquatic fruits, consisting of over 90% liquid, and maintaining their moisture levels without cracking was one of the biggest challenges. Curiously, despite its monumental size, this giant cucumber was perfectly edible. Theoretically, it could have become a salad for a crowded banquet or enough tzatziki to accompany an entire party. But as with most record-breaking vegetables, its true purpose was for display, to show the world that what we consider mundane can reach astonishing proportions. The most astonishing thing is people's reactions. When they saw it at agricultural fairs, many couldn't believe it was real and gingerly touched it as if it were an exotic creature. This colossal cucumber not only broke the record but also shattered the idea that nature has fixed limits. It was proof that even the simplest thing can be transformed into an unforgettable spectacle. 10th. The giant onion. In 2014, Great Britain again surprised the agricultural world with a record that seemed straight out of a cartoon. An 8.5 kilograms onion, grown by Tony Glover. It was so enormous that, looking at it, it looked more like a football than a kitchen ingredient. Onions are one of the most common vegetables, present in almost every culinary culture. They typically weigh between 100 and 200 grams, but this onion exceeded that figure by dozens. Imagine trying to peel it in your kitchen. You'll need a huge knife, several cutting boards, and, no doubt, gallons of tears. Because while a simple onion can make you cry, this one was capable of evoking emotion on an industrial scale. The secret to Glover's achievement was a combination of experience, patience, and meticulous growing techniques. He prepared deeply fertile soil, precisely applied nutrients, and protected the plants from pests for months. Furthermore, moisture control was crucial. Too much water could rot the onion, while too little could stunt its development. The result was a bulb as perfect in shape as it was impossible in size. Most curiously, despite its colossal bulk, the onion retained its flavor. Theoretically, it would have been enough to make a stew that would feed a crowd in one sitting. However, as with most record-breaking vegetables, its destiny was not in a pot, but rather on display at agricultural fairs, where visitors were stunned by this natural wonder. This giant onion became a symbol of devotion, as well as a humorous reminder. Nature can not only make us cry over an ordinary onion, but also do so on a grand scale, with a spectacle worthy of a Guinness Book of Records. 11. Giant eggplant. In Italy, a land of intense flavors and culinary traditions, in 2021 a vegetable was born that seemed to have emerged not from a garden, but from a display case. A giant eggplant, reaching 3 kilograms and 100 grams. Its appearance was impressive. A true shiny purple ball that reflected the light as if it had been hand-polished. What's impressive about this record is that a typical eggplant weighs only 200 to 300 grams. This means this specimen was equivalent to more than 10 traditional eggplants crammed into one. Seeing it, one might imagine it as a basketball, painted purple, ready to be displayed rather than cooked. The Italian farmer who achieved this feat left nothing to chance. He utilized fertile, mineral-rich soil and employed controlled irrigation techniques that allowed the plant to grow without interruption. The Mediterranean climate, with its ideal balance of sun and humidity, was a natural ally in this process. And as with many agricultural records, the seed used belonged to a carefully selected variety with the genetic potential to produce large fruits. Unlike other giant vegetables, which typically lose quality as they grow, the eggplant retained its firmness and distinctive flavor. Theoretically, it could have been sliced into enough parmigiana to feed an entire neighborhood. However, its value lay in the spectacle, in the opportunity to show the world how far nature can go when combined with passion and technique. The giant eggplant from Italy was not only a record but also a cultural symbol, a unity of agricultural excellence and gastronomic pride of a country that loves its ingredients. A purple ball that clearly demonstrated that cuisine, when it begins on Earth, can be truly monumental. 12. Giant garlic in China. In 1985, a garlic bulb was harvested that defied all known standards. A specimen weighing 1 kilogram and 190 grams, a bulb so large that it not only seemed capable of repelling a vampire but also protecting an entire city. Garlic is an essential ingredient in global gastronomy. A head typically weighs between 30 and 50 grams. This head was equivalent to more than 20 ordinary garlic heads combined into a single raft. Its appearance was so astonishing that it resembled a miniature pumpkin rather than a condiment. The secret to such a large size lay in a combination of natural and human factors. The region's fertile, mineral-rich soil, coupled with a favorable climate, allowed the bulb to grow without restraint. Added to this was the dedication of Chinese farmers, who applied traditional cultivation techniques passed down through generations. Humidity control and pest protection were key to achieving such an extraordinary result. Curiously, despite its monumental size, this giant garlic retained its characteristic properties, its penetrating aroma, its intense flavor, and its renowned health benefits. Imagine the culinary possibilities. Just one clove of that bulb would be enough to flavor an entire wok or soup for dozens of people. This white ear has been immortalized as one of the most compelling proofs that even the smallest can grow into a giant when conditions are perfect. 13. Giant strawberry. In Japan in 2015, nature gifted a red gem that appeared to have emerged from slumber. A strawberry that reached 250 grams. To understand the unusual size, it's enough to remember that a regular strawberry weighs only 15 to 20 grams. This specimen was the equivalent of more than a dozen strawberries in a single bite. Its appearance was impressive, bright red and with tiny seeds embedded as if they were gold jewelry. It looked more like a work of art than a simple fruit. Upon seeing it, many thought it was a small apple disguised as a strawberry. The Japanese farmer who achieved this record used a variety known as AMAO, renowned for producing large and very sweet strawberries. However, reaching 250 grams required much more than just a good seed. Months of meticulous care were required, from temperature control in the greenhouses to regulating air humidity and soil quality. Every detail was focused on ensuring the fruit grew without losing its perfect color and distinctive flavor. Most astonishingly, unlike other giant fruits that typically sacrifice quality, This record-breaker strawberry retained its exceptional sweetness and unmistakable aroma. A single specimen was enough to make an entire dessert or top a cake as the star. In Japan, strawberries hold a special place in culinary culture, and this specimen was hailed as a true miracle. It became international news. It was photographed, exhibited, and admired for its rarity. This giant strawberry not only broke a record but also reminded us that even the most delicate and fragile things in nature can be transformed into a monumental spectacle. A fruit that transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary, clearly demonstrating that perfection can also be measured in gigantic grams. 14th. The giant pepper. A pepper so astonishing that it earned a place in the history of agricultural records was grown in the UK. It weighed 720 grams, more than 3 times what a typical pepper typically achieves. Upon seeing it, the comparison was inevitable. It looked like a clenched fist, fiery red, ready to strike anyone who held it. A traditional pepper weighs between 200 and 250 grams, enough to be sliced into strips and served with a family dinner. This spike was the equivalent of 3 peppers combined into one, with thick walls and such a robust shape that it looked more like a fairground decoration than a simple garden vegetable. The secret of this specimen lay in the care of a British farmer who applied precise greenhouse cultivation techniques. Controlling light, temperature, and humidity were key to the fruit's vigorous development. Furthermore, the variety used was specifically selected for producing large, intensely colored peppers, giving it that vibrant red hue that made it even more appealing. Curiously, unlike other giant vegetables that sometimes lose quality, this pepper retained a sweet, fresh, and juicy flavor. Theoretically, it could be stuffed with meat or rice and served as a standalone dish. A single pepper would be enough to make a whole table salad or add a vibrant accent to a crowded stew. Displayed at agricultural fairs, it attracted the attention of all visitors. It wasn't just food, it was a living demonstration of the potential of modern horticulture. An ordinary fruit, taken to extremes, transformed into a spectacle worthy of admiration. This giant pepper is still remembered as proof that the ordinary can become extraordinary and that nature, when properly nurtured, can gift us with truly edible ears. 15th. The giant banana, the Highland variety. In the humid and mysterious jungles of Papua New Guinea, grows a banana variety so amazing that it seems straight out of legend. Known as the Highland, it can reach up to 60 centimeters in length. So enormous that holding it, it looks more like a medieval weapon than a tropical fruit. While a typical banana is about 20 centimeters, this spike easily triples that. Imagine it on a table. It would look like a decorative object, too large to fit in a traditional fruit bowl. It's no exaggeration to say that one of these would be enough to make a smoothie or a whole bowl of desserts. The most captivating thing about this variety is not only its size, but also its cultural origin. In Papua New Guinea, bananas are a staple in the daily diet and a symbol of abundance. They are grown in the highlands not for record-breaking competitions, but as part of the daily life of highland communities. There, these giant bananas are as normal as the specimens we find in the supermarket. Their texture is firmer than commercial bananas, and their flavor is slightly less sweet, making them ideal for cooking. In fact, they are used both boiled and fried, accompanying stews and traditional regional dishes. It is a fruit that combines practicality and showiness. A meal that is both satisfying and impressive. This giant banana is the perfect conclusion to our list. A fruit that defies expectations and which, beyond its monumental appearance, reminds us how the planet's biodiversity can surprise us with creations that seem unreal. A tropical gift that proves that nature, when it expands without boundaries, can offer us true edible giants worthy of legend. Yes,